You thought that at the end of the All-Star break, it'd be time to talk nothing but the trade deadline, but instead, extensions are all the rage. We'll talk extensions, we'll talk trade targets, keys to the second half, and a quick Pirates Guardians preview on a jam-packed episode of Locked on Guardians.
You are Locked on Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into a Friday edition of Locked on Guardians. The first half is finally over. The All-Star break is finally over. Our national nightmare. No, not the fact that the air quality stinks in Cleveland, but baseball is back on TV, not just exhibition games. The Guardians are back hosting the Pirates this weekend in a pretty good matchup. That'll be pretty important out of the All-Star break. We'll get to that later in today's show, but we'll get off to today's show talking about contract extensions before we get into trade targets and keys to the second half, because extensions seem to be popping up at the All-Star break around baseball. Who knew that was going to be a thing? This is Locked on Guardians, your only daily Cleveland Guardians podcast that covers your team every day from the majors, the minors, the draft, and everything in between. I think we'll get into a decent amount of that stuff every which way on today's episode. And of course, I'm Justin Lada, your host for today, who's been here with you for the last 4 years and counting. I've covered the Guardians minor league system for the last 19 years. And Jeff Ellis, my co-host, who has been here since day one of Locked On 8 years ago in MLB, has been covering the team for 19 years in terms of the draft and minor leagues. He is off today, enjoying a well-deserved day off. He's going to miss out on some interesting things that he can't refute. So it'll be a lot of fun, including the fact that the All-Star game was still fun. The Home Run Derby was still fun. And I still wish the MLB draft was Wednesday and Thursday, but it is what it is. So we've seen some extension news come up recently. We haven't had a chance to talk about some of these things over the last couple of weeks. JJ Wetherholt and the St. Louis Cardinals had a extension worked out before the All-Star break, and we didn't get a chance to really get into that, but ended up being I believe it was 8 years and $112 million. Now JJ Wetherholt is, I believe, about the same age as Travis Bazana, if I'm not mistaken. They might be a year apart. So Travis is going to turn 24 in about a month. JJ Wetherholt is going to turn 24 about a month after him. So they're about a month apart in terms of age. Not that big of a deal, actually more like 2 weeks apart, honestly. So he got an 8-year and $112 million deal from the St. Louis Cardinals just a few weeks ago. And the reason I wanted to bring it up now is because Chase Burns, also member of that 2024 draft class first round, also got a contract extension of 7 years, $105 million from the Cincinnati Reds, which I do think it makes their trade deadline very interesting because will they trade Hunter Green now? They have they have Chase Burns wrapped up. We'll see how that goes for them. And then, of course, Connor Griffin got a pre-arb extension. We've seen a lot of other extensions this year too, right? Colt Emerson has gotten an extension, Cooper Pratt, Luis Lara. We've seen a bunch of other extensions. So the time should be now for the Guardians and for Travis Bazana. I think both sides here makes a lot of sense. Now, obviously, games are starting today, and the Guardians don't do this in season. But I think as soon as the season ends, this is something the Guardians should talk about, because you're getting all kinds of easy comps at this point. And, I tried to run the numbers, and everybody knows I'm not big on math and numbers, but I had a little help. I went through and used some tools to try to go through the numbers and parse things out for me a little bit, use some spreadsheets so that I didn't have to calculate by hand, using some projections and formulas that make it easier than me doing the math myself. And I'll just tell you the number I came out to for the Guardians. It was 8 years and about 118 to 125 million for Travis Bazana. Now that buys him into his age 31 season in 2034. So that's 8 years from now. So he's going to turn 24. So about age 32, it'll be through his age 31, 32 season. And that's only one extra year of free agency. So maybe it doesn't actually matter that much for him, although he's going to He's going to be no, he won't be a Super 2 because he wasn't up long enough for that. He's going to get a full year. I don't think he's going to get a full year of service time. I know we'll get a message from our buddy Andrew Kinsman about service time. Either way, I still think it makes a ton of sense for the Guardians to go out and extend Travis Bazana based on this, because the Cardinals did the same exact thing. I mean, JJ Wetherholt, again, is a couple weeks apart from Bazana. He's going to hit free agency at the same year, although he was up at the beginning of the year, so he does get a full year of service time, but I mean, it wouldn't be surprised if Bazana does too. So there's other incentives to do that as well to lock him up. And then there's going to be options at the end of that as well. And Cleveland could do that multiple ways. They could front load the contract, right now, because that locks you into before known payroll in the CBA in the offseason. Because what happens if there's a salary cap or whatever changes in the CBA? You lock in that money now, and then you don't have to backload it as much when he gets older, right? For Travis Bazana. The other thing is, if you do backload it, you can keep it up now, which is more, likely. Nobody really backloads contracts. It's usually front loaded. You buy out the cheap RB years, and the real money is the free agency years for Travis Bazana. But based on the fact that he just made the All-Star team, I know everyone's going to say, well, or at least the people who are still doubters are going to say, well, is Travis Bazana really a real all-star? Because, he wasn't really good and second base isn't really good. That's also part of the reason, right? You just saw how bad second base is, right? They were trying to figure out second base after the Andres Jimenez thing. They gave him the extension, didn't work out. They were out from under that contract. They've been pretty good about getting out from under deals that don't go well for them. But for Bazana, I would do it from their end, because again, second base is not good. And despite people might say their middle infield in the minors is not good, their middle infield in the minors right now is literally, if you look at it, to me, it's Angel Hanao. You have Rocchio, you have Bazana at the top, right? Angel Hanao's in AAA. You have Juan Brito, who we saw that experiment, even though I still think he can be a good major leaguer, not exactly inspiring so far. In the minors, you got guys like Dean Curley, who I don't think is a shortstop, but he's going to play his first game at AA tonight, as you're listening to this. Luke Hill is there. He's interesting, but he's been on the IL with a shoulder injury since June 24th. He was good, but you don't know anything about him. And then you got guys like Welbin Francisco down in Lake County, who's, hitting better recently, but definitely isn't a shortstop, I can tell you that. And you don't know what he's going to be. Middle infield in the system is not great. And it'd be good to get some cost certainty, I think, for Bazana and the Guardians. Because if you do somehow have a cap floor and a cap ceiling, Bazana fits into that pretty easily on both sides of things. It gives him some guaranteed money right before the uncertainty, and it gives the Guardians someone locked up. Not only that, it gives you something to talk about, I think, in November before the lockout, something positive that happens that fans can kind of at least latch onto, right? Because once we get to November 30th and December 1st, it's all going to be negative, nothing but negativity until a new deal is signed. You get Travis Bazana locked up to a nice extension before then. Maybe you go out on some positive notes there. Not to mention that might be, a bit nice gift from David Blitzer, who has the option to take over as owner there. We'll see what happens. I think the timing is right for the Guardians and Bazana. They're not going to do it in season. I know the other teams did announce theirs in season, although the Guardians have been doing a bunch of different things we haven't expected, at least in terms of the draft and calling up players. So maybe this is something they'll also make a change for too. And there are downfalls, right? There are pitfalls, right? You got Kristen Campbell, who was rushed to the minors a little bit. Colt Keith, he's been okay, but could have been better. Scott Kingery obviously didn't work out, but that was all very early on. And obviously the Andres Jimenez deal didn't work out for them as well. But the other examples are this. Like, you got Kevin McGonigal out there who's doing pretty good. Corbin Carroll took one of these similar deals. Colt Emerson. There's other guys in the list. Luis Robert. Yeah, that's one you probably don't want to look at too closely. Eloy Jimenez. Those aren't great ones. There's going to be some risk no matter what here. But I think it's a risk the Guardians can take on for Bazana. I think it's a risk Bazana can take on to get some money, because let's be honest, whether he hits free agency without a contract or not, he still hits it at an age where he's probably not going to be paid a ton. And who knows what the landscape of baseball is going to be by then. Like, I think it makes sense for both sides. And again, I think you could probably even get him a little bit cheaper, right? At Wetherholt at 112, He's not playing shortstop yet because they still have Mason Wynn. So he came in a little bit cheaper than if he was playing shortstop for them. You don't have to spend the 9,140 that the Pirates did on Connor Griffin. I feel like you could probably get in at like 8,110, maybe even 8,100. Pretty darn close. We'll see what happens there. There are some other guys we can talk about too, specifically two other guys that I think make a ton of sense for the Guardians. We'll touch on those. We'll talk on some more trade targets, keys to the second half, and a quick Pirates preview for the weekend. While we're in today's show, it's time for the Everyday Icon, presented by Stance, the official sock partner of Major League Baseball. Stance knows that greatness is not built in a single moment. It's earned over time, consistency, preparation, showing every day. And that's why each week we're recognizing one player whose performance embodies those same qualities. Now, for Parker Messick, there was one standout moment, at least this week. It was his 10-pitch second inning in his first career All-Star game, getting Max Muncy to pop out, Ozzie Albies to ground out, and Brandon Marsh called on strikes. 7 strikes on 10 pitches. And Parker Messick, how did he get there? He got there because he is 12th in Major League Baseball in WAR at 2.8. He's having an incredible season all year long. His 2.73 ERA also puts him in 12th as well. He's been doing it all year long. The Everyday Icon is presented by Stance. Check out the Icon collection from Stance. Premium comfort, performance, durability, design for whatever your day brings. Use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for 20% off your purchase. Stance, the official sock partner of Major League Baseball. Learn more at stance.com. And we know that baseball players, they are famously known for the routine, especially pitchers, I feel like. Whether it's a lucky jersey, a pregame ritual, sticking to the same prep every single day, we know the consistency matters. When it comes to hair thinning, a lot of products out there will make promises, and not a lot of confidence comes with those promises. That's why more people are looking for solutions backed by real science, trusted experts. And Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand and the official hair growth partner of Major League Baseball. What makes Nutrafol stand out to me, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, right? It's designed to fit into your routine. So while you're addressing the root cause of thinning hair, you're getting personalized solutions. Baseball players, they've been out of their routine a little bit this week. It's been the All-Star break, so have to throw over the break, get some rest, but also hit, do all those things. They're going to have to be ready to play the game today, and hopefully their bodies are rejuvenated. They can get back into playing every single day, and routines are a big part of that, getting back into those routines. So find out why Nutrafol is the only hair growth supplement brand that's trusted by Major League Baseball. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our customers $10 off your first month subscription from free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is that you get podcasts. We do appreciate that, and that is what has made us the #1 sports podcast network is you. If you want more of the show, it doesn't have to end after the 30 minutes we spend together here every single day. You can check out the Everydayer Club if you're here every single day. That gets you access to ad-free versions of the show on wherever you listen to podcasts on audio, and you get the private listener Discord as well. You can hang out with other listeners of the show, Guards fans, myself, Jeff, other hosts of other shows. We have a channel for every show, and every host and all the fans are on there as well. So you can go hang out and check that out at the link in your show notes. Go to lockedonguardians.supercast.com to learn more. You can, I think, still get a 7-day free trial when you sign up. Stay tuned for more news on that coming soon. And you, if you're part of the Everydayer or Insider Club, you have access to the Insiders Chat, which we do about once a month. That's a little bonus thing. And we did that on Thursday night. So thanks to all those who hung out and had some fun. And if you want to be on one of those, sign up for the Everydayer Club now. All right, so other contracts I want to talk about too. It's not just Travis Bazana. I think there's a good case for Chase DeLauter for the Guardians as well. I think that also makes a ton of sense. That one, I think, is a little bit less risky. And I know you're going to say, well, Chase DeLauter is always hurt. Of course it's risky. Yes, there is definitely some risk there, without a doubt on that. But I think part of that risk you can really take a chance on. This is where the Guardians probably should. Now, how will the second half go for Chase DeLauter? That's, anybody's guess. We'll talk about that more later on in the show. But he's probably the most signable candidate on this team right now because he does have the injury history and he's at that age. Like you just saw the contracts that are coming out now. I think he's a guy you can get really at one of those under market rates right now and have a lot of really exciting years. And especially if things change when you get to the CBA, if there is a salary floor or whatever you want to do, like there's a good chance you can fit DeLauter into a lot of those examples if he stays healthy. Some of the comps here I'm looking at too that are, toolsy, corner bats, outfield, infield, whatever. Like, yeah, you got your Jackson Churios, who was a high school player at 19, and Sandy Losalo. The other guy like Luis Robert, who was 22, he got 6 years, $50 million. That was a while ago in 2020, and he's been hurt a lot, right? Similar players, lots of injuries, but very tooled up. The one guy I really looked at here, I thought made the most sense to compare Chase DeLauter to was Lawrence Butler of the Athletics, and that's both on the contract side and both the risk side, because right now, Lawrence Butler looks pretty awful. It's not good. And that is a cautionary tale, right? Lawrence Butler had that great 2024 platform year where he had a 490 slugging percentage, had 22 homers, 18 steals, great season. He had no injury history coming to that. He was 24 and he signed it. And he got 7 years at $65 million plus an opt-out. That was when he had less than a year of service time, right? About a couple months into his season. Chase DeLauter, pretty close. I think the injury history really helps them out here, though. I think if you look at Butler and you look at DeLauter's injury history, look what he's doing when he's healthy, because he's come back and he's hit after that rib injury, which he shouldn't be able to do. It's ridiculous. And he goes in waves. If you can lock a guy like Chase DeLauter in for 7 years at like $40 to $50 million, I think you have to do it, because the risk is so low, the money's so low there, that you're potentially locking in a 20 home run hitter at right field, something the Guardians haven't had for a long time. I think that's the easiest way to go here. You give him performance escalators for games played. So you build in like at bats and other incentives to really drive the contract up where the value helps both sides. I think you can get him to sign that, and you offload a little bit of risk both ways. You give him more incentives to earn more money if he's healthy, and if not, you're a little bit less risky there. But I think the time is now for him as well to lock this in. Now, again, Lawrence Butler has struggled since signing that deal, so there are downsides there for that. But he is the most signable player on the roster, and we're talking about extensions. The last one I want to talk about is Parker Messick. Parker Messick might be the hardest one to sign out of all these guys, right? Because he just came off an all-star game. He's still got about less than a year of service time, I believe. Let me see where he's at. He's not quite at a year yet because he came up in September last year. But he's, in conversations for Rookie of the Year, as are DeLauter and Bazana. These are your three rookies. Which one are you going to lock up? I think Mark Messick might be the hardest one. Honestly, he is 25 years old. So it is going to be tricky how many years you want to buy out a 25-year-old college pitcher who is, let's be honest, the downside here is as good as he's pitching. He's 6 foot 225. That comes with some risk right there. And you already gave Tanner Bybee money as a pitcher. Pitchers get hurt at some point. They all do. And that's the risk you're buying in when you give someone a contract. And that's the reason why pitchers should sign contracts, because there is injury risk. Just ask Tristan McKenzie. He didn't even really get hurt. He's been healthy, and he just got released by the Padres. Poor guy. I feel so bad for Tristan McKenzie. Great kid, and just really bad timing. But Chase Burns, we just saw get a 7-year, $105 million deal. He's 2 years younger than Parker Messick, but a really good arm, right? You want to go back and look at other arms too. You got Logan Webb, who signed an ARB1 deal at $590, so he was close to arbitration when he signed his. Spencer Strider, former Guardians draft pick, by the way, signed his at about 2 years, so he was a little before pre-ARB. 6 years, $75 million. That's a pretty good comp. He's also another smaller guy, right? But he's also coming off a bunch of injuries after that too. So cautionary tale. We talked about Hunter Green, 653, but he was also a high school player. And then you got Parker's own teammate, Tanner Bybee, who didn't sign his extension until after 2 full seasons. He got 5 years, $48 million. Now, he had less of a signing bonus than Parker Messick. Messick's got less of a track record in terms of years, but he's already an all-star as a rookie. He was pretty darn good. He's been good his entire career. And I would guess that he probably commands more money than Tanner at this point. If I'm Parker Messick, I've already made an all-star team. I've been pretty good. I might bet on myself. I don't know unless the Guardians really come in with an offer that's really good. I think you're talking about a guy who you're talking 6 years, maybe 60 million, 10 million a year. And that's risky. That's risky for the Guardians to do. Messick might even require more than that. I can't say I blame him. Maybe you do, 6 years, 75 million, and you could throw in escalators there as well. But again, he's 25. Like, that might push him more to sign a deal now. But then again, with the guy, because Parker Messick is going to have a full year at the end of the year. He is going to have a full year of service time at the end of the year. Do you want it? Do you want Parker Messick at age 32, age 33? I don't know. There's some risk there. So maybe he's more signable than I thought. But I thought it was interesting time to talk contract extensions, just because it's all happening. It's surprising to see, the Chase Burns and the JJ Wetherholts happen at midseason. Very, very unusual. But I think with the timing of those being signed makes a lot of sense for those guys with the lockout coming in the CBA. These are the times you want to approach these guys, because guess what? When the lockout comes, you guys haven't had your millions. You guys, other than Travis Bazana, I know, Chase DeLauter got $1 million, more of a signing bonus, and Messick got 1.3, so they didn't get nothing. But I know the NLBPA has a war chest, but they don't know how the CBA is going to work out. They don't know. Maybe there will be a salary cap. These guys, unfortunately, don't have as much control when it comes to the CBA process, negotiating process. They're not part of the senior team. Like, you got Stephen Kwan. I think Tanner Bybee is Kwan's alternate just because of longevity. And I know Jose's not really involved with that stuff. So they don't have a whole lot of control over some of this stuff. So you could end up have a salary floor and then a salary cap that impacts these guys. So they might want some security early on. I think DeLauter is the easiest one, just given his history and situation. But it was an interesting time to do that. And I think it would make sense for the Guardians to attack all these things if they're not going to do it in season, because they never do, unless they change things up like they have other places. But if you do it in November before the lockout, you at least create some goodwill for your team and baseball and around baseball before the lockout starts. Although the owners might pressure them not to do it because they don't want to be seen as giving money. Although there's free agents who will sign before then. So maybe that doesn't make much of a difference. Let me know what you think of the contract extension proposals. We're going to get into trade targets, keys to the second half, Pirates preview, and I got another draft stat for you too. I'll come up with a draft stat after the break. We're coming up on the most important time of year for baseball. Much better when you watch it live. And summer events, they're going on, and that's where you have all the excitement, the fans that you share that connection with. The problem is, no matter what the event, whether it's a playoff baseball game maybe, or even the hot concert you want to go to, tickets can be a grind. You get queues, surprise fees, and prices jumping at checkout. Nobody likes that. Game Time is simple to use because it's the app that gives advantages back to fans like us with constant innovation, and it's how we get amazing experiences in just a few taps. And you get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time every time at the best price, because the price you see is the price you pay. Fees are included in the price, so you don't have to worry about those prices jumping at checkout. My wife is headed down to Cincinnati this weekend to see Benson Boone because she used Game Time to find really a good deal on tickets, even though he wasn't coming to Cleveland. 2 taps, and it was done. No stress, no hidden fees, great seats and minutes. Makes it easy to go to any event last minute. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And support for today's episode comes from Indeed Sponsored Jobs. When workplace chaos hits and you need the right hire, Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps connect employers with candidates who match specific needs like skills, maybe a right-handed hitter or a left-handed reliever, certifications and location. Less time spent searching, more time spent getting the right candidate who is the right fit. People are finding quality hires on Indeed right now because the minute we've been talking, people like you or companies have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. The Guardians, I would be curious to see what they put out on Indeed for the trade deadline to see if they can find the right match out there. It might be the easiest way to do it when it comes to the trade deadline, because it's going to be packed out there and they need to cut through the chaos. Spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. You're the right person to cut through that chaos. It's a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners Locked On Guardians, you get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support the show by saying you heard about a Locked On Guardians. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Make sure you're auto-downloading all your favorite audio platforms so you keep Locked On Guardians in your feed every single day wherever you go, because we are here for you literally every single day, whether it's rain, sleet, or snow, or smog, or fire, whatever is going on out there, we're still there. And then hit the bell on YouTube so you get notified of when videos go live, whether those are live streams for whatever reason, the draft, reaction videos, and all of our daily episodes. So interesting draft stat real quick before we get into some trade guys and some second half keys. I think I saw Carlos Collazo of Baseball America put this out with their partners over at Pramana Labs last week, actually 3 days ago. So that's still this week. The Guardians had 78 players since 2012 who signed with them between draft pick rounds 5 through 10. So that's 78 players since 2012. They have signed after drafting them in rounds 5 through 10. 18 of those players have gone on to make their major league debut. And that gives them about 23% of the players they've signed over that time in that range have made their major league debut. So only the Yankees, the Rockies, the Twins, the Dodgers, and the Astros are above them in that time. So that tells you things are a little bit mixed, right? You got the Rockies and the Twins, and the Yankees, yes, the Dodgers, the Astros, all good. Guardians are in good shape there. And then the follow-up tweet I thought was interesting from Robert Frey, who does a lot of great stuff for college baseball, including finding savant data on college games. He took the most Baseball Reference WAR by team for drafted and signed players round 5 through 10 since 2012. And the only team above the Guardians was the St. Louis Cardinals at 51.9. So the most Baseball Reference WAR among draft picks signed in rounds 5 through 10 and since 2012 is the Cardinals and the Guardians are the top two. And actually by a wide margin, they're at 37.3 in rounds 5 through 10. And then the Detroit Tigers come in at 24.5. So I thought it was pretty interesting. And then there was another one I saw too, where the Guardians were the only team, I think, that didn't have a comp pick as well. In one of the top drafts, I think it was MLB Pipeline talked about the best drafts of the season or the best drafts of the MLB draft. And I think the Guardians were the only team that landed in that list for them that didn't have a comp pick. They only had 20 picks. So pretty crazy there, right? All right. So now that we've talked contract extensions, let's talk trades. So we talked yesterday a little bit about guys that were on the Athletics, like relievers, things like that. I'm trying to think who else we went through. We went through a bunch of other guys too. I think it was mostly relief targets, the Reds, Spencer Steer. Why not? I know a lot of people have asked about Helio Ramos. I don't think Ramos is necessarily a great fit for the Guardians, if I'm being very honest with you. Yeah, he's a right-handed hitter. He's 27, so he's young. I think he's got some team control left at let's see, the rest of 6, 7, and 8, and 9. But he's a guy who chases out of the zone a lot. He doesn't hit for necessarily a ton of power. You know, you don't necessarily need to bring in the same guys for everything, but they have had less interest in guys who chase out of the zone. But he's got a 145 WRC plus against lefties. However, a 395 batting average on balls in play. And he's also a pretty bad defender. And I know they don't necessarily need to care about defense. They have guys on the roster they can call up to play defense late in the game, but Ramos is pretty iffy in the outfield. -2 outs above average in the outfield this year, in right field and left field. So not necessarily not a target, but not my favorite as well. I think Casey Schmidt's an interesting one. Jeff and I think, talked more about this off air, and he said they're not going to trade him. So Casey Schmidt is, so I got the spell wrong on here because, he spells his name a different way. He is 27. He won't turn 28 until March of next year, but he's also got 3 years of club control left, including this year. Another guy who does chase out of the zone a lot too. Doesn't strike out a lot. Doesn't, particularly hit the ball all that hard. He's got pretty good exit velocities. The proper launch angle, though, you want for getting the ball out of the park. Absolutely is crushing lefties this year. Does have a 354 BABIP against lefties. The nice thing about Casey Schmidt, though, is that he plays all over the field, right? He's played 30 games in the left. He's DH 23 times. He's played first base. He's played third base. Now, he's not a real great outfielder overall. You're not getting a really great defender in those positions either, as we said. the Guardians do have other guys. That's not true. He's a decent defender at third base. It's the outfield where he's shakiest at. So maybe not the best fit, but I think he's going to cost a lot. So him and Spencer Steer are in the same camp. Obviously the easy one for outfield is, as Jeff said, is Taylor Ward. Doesn't chase out of the zone. Is not hitting for any power this year, unfortunately. But is the guy that makes the most sense for them if the Orioles can fall out of the race. How about this name, though? I'm going to leave you with this name on trades. There's one team I'm very interested in to talk about before we get out of here. I talk about keys to the second half and the Pirates series ahead. The Padres, I've seen, aren't necessarily clear on where they want to go. They're going to let the last couple of weeks of July dictate what happens there. And I think AJ Preller is a pretty opportunistic guy. I think there's a very good chance, even if he does not necessarily commit to selling, I think he could trade Adrian Morejon, because Adrian Morejon is one of the best left-handed relievers in baseball over the last 3 years. Very valuable commodity, even as a rental. And I think you can get a lot for that. And I think AJ Preller could stand pat on some things and still trade Adrian Morejon, and he'd be a great fit for the Guardians. It's going to cost a pretty penny to get him if he's a rental, not as much as you would think, but still going to be challenging. But I think that's the guy I'm still looking at the most. And how about this? The Padres, there's been people asking about Mason Miller. And, I saw AJ Preller saying, well, we really like Mason Miller. The plan's still to contend. All I'm going to say is this. If you're going to go all out, and let me tell you this right now. There is no bat that is going to be traded at the deadline that is as impactful as Mason Miller. I know everyone's going to say, got to get a bat. And I wish that was true, especially right-handed bat. There is not going to be a bat. Write this down. On July 17th, there is not a bat that is going to change hands at the deadline this year that is going to be anywhere near as potentially good. Now, you could get some guy traded who ends up having this crazy stretch, and I don't see it coming. But in terms of guys you can expect to be real impact players, none of them are going to be as good as Mason Miller. If Mason Miller is on the block, think about this. Mason Miller and Cade Smith at the end of your bullpen. You got this starting rotation. You got Hunter Gaddis. You're probably going to have to trade one of your relief arms. Maybe you can go get a cheaper one like a Mark Leither Jr. Think about, though, you can get 3 innings a game. You can get probably 9 outs combined between Mason Miller and Cade Smith. And Mason Miller, by the way, still club control left. And at the worst, you can flip Mason Miller later on if you really wanted to trade him and recoup some value, because he's going to maintain value because he is the sickest reliever not named Cade Smith. I know everyone's going to say the Guardians need a bat. It's not untrue, but again, you're not going to find a bat as impactful as Mason Miller is on this team that you could trade for. If he was truly available and I was the Guardians, this is another Miller reliever I'd be going for. Let me know what you think in the comments. All right, keys to the second half here as we wrap up the show. Rotation stability to me is a major factor for this team. The Guardians have the 3rd most innings by their starting pitchers in baseball this year, which is a good thing. That means, A, their starters are pitching a lot of innings, which means they're going deeper into games. They're really good. They are the 11th best staff by WAR. They're the 7th best staff by ERA, and they're the 10th best staff by FIP. So pretty darn good across the board, if you ask me. But they're the only team in baseball that's only had 5 starters. Another reason to trade for Mason Miller, by the way. Get that bullpen. Get that bullpen smell. It was the reason you traded for a starter a couple years ago, like Matt Boyd and Alex Cobb, all that stuff you had then. Get some bullpen help so you can, take some strain off of the rotation in case things break a little bit and these guys break down. Very curious to see what happens there. I think do the little things well is very important, especially as we're not going to see Jose or Angel Martinez back for at least another week or two. Got to play good defense, got to run the bases well. You got to, do all those little things, move the runner over, sack flies. I know that's not what they're really about anymore, but if you're going to keep winning games and staying in this thing and build the momentum you had off that Marlins sweep, you got to do the little things well. And when it comes to the trade deadline, you got to make tough decisions, whether that is making a tough trade, whether that's maybe parting ways with Rhys Hoskins because you can find an upgrade. He's not really a fit. Or maybe it's Sean Armstrong. This team needs to be able to make tough decisions at the deadline, move on from players or acquire players that fit better, that are performing right now, and admitting the mistakes on guys like whether it's Armstrong or Hoskins. And the one I wish you could say was a little easier is getting healthy and staying healthy. It'd be great if Jose and Angel come back and this team was healthy to the end, but you can't control that, but that'll be a big thing. Should be a fun weekend series. You got Gavin Williams and Jared Jones. Jared Jones has not been all that good since his Tommy John surgery, so that's a fun matchup. You got Joey Cantillo and Braxton Ashcraft, who's really, really good. Cantillo had a good start his last time out, and then you got Tanner Bybee and Paul Skeens. Woo! That is going to be a fun match. Although Skeens has struggled in some of his starts recently, so we'll see how that goes. The Pirates offense, though, by the way, even without Connor Griffin, really red-hot offense. Very good offense. Their bullpen stinks, so you want to beat up on the bullpen there. You want to get into that bullpen as soon as you can to see if you can take 2 or 3. All right, enjoy the weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy some baseball. Let me know what you think of the contract extensions, trade deadline targets. We'll have more cover to that for you on Locked On Guardians next week, as well as a Guardians-Pirates weekend wrap-up in the meantime. Make sure you are downloading daily all the good stuff. It helps. Appreciate it. Could use that new Apple Podcast review. And in the meantime, go Guardians, go.